Hi again. I'm Johanna Hattendorf, owner of the Spiral Path in Topsfield, Massachusetts, providing trauma-informed bodywork and healing. If you watched the first video, you know that I'm also a survivor of childhood abuse and trauma. I've spent a lot of my adult life healing my own trauma and providing a bridge to others, helping people just like you move from surviving to thriving so you too can live a fuller, richer, deeper, happier life. In the first video, I shared with you some basics to help you understand what trauma is. It's an overwhelm to the nervous system and our body's ability to cope. How trauma is different from stress, and that is that trauma is perceived as life-threatening. It's about survival. And why it is that trauma continues to persist even after the actual event has passed. And that's because the body gets stuck and doesn't know how to reset. So in this video, I want to share with you some ways that you can help yourself begin the healing process by learning how to reset your nervous system. So there's a saying that says neurons that fire together wire together. And basically what that means is when trauma is present, the neurons in your brain and in your body fired in a certain way, and they stayed that way. And that creates a neural pathway that is very sensitive to future events. Those neural pathways kind of fire again when anything looks the same or feels the same or has similar conditions. They all have a tendency to remind us of the initial trauma, and then the primitive brain says, oh my God, we're gonna die again. So that is one of the ways that trauma persists in a pattern. And sometimes people talk about that as being triggered. The classic example used to be, the Vietnam vet who comes back and finds himself running to hide in the bushes when he hears a loud noise. All right, that's a very simplistic notion, but again, you get the idea. Neurons that fire together, wire together, and then our bodies continue to respond the same way. I like to think of it more like the fire alarm in your house thinks that the house is on fire when really you're just cooking bacon and it's smoking. And so then you have to go through open all the windows, blow a fan, wave dishcloth at the fire alarm, and reset the alarm so it doesn't keep blaring. It's the same way with our nervous systems. The neurons fire together and create a very sensitive pathway. And so for our own bodies, we need to learn how to open the windows and reset the alarm. Now, there's a lot of ways to do this. You've probably heard of some things like yoga or meditation, and those are good, but they're not good for everybody. No one way is right for everyone. And even for you, some things that work at one time maybe don't work later, or something works well one time and then something different works better another time. That's okay. I've got a huge long list of stuff that I know works for me. And sometimes I'll use one and sometimes I'll use something else. So it's not so much about the specifics, it's more about the categories of what will work. So again, we've got to go back to the nervous system. We tend to think about all the messages in our body are going from the brain down to the body. But actually, we have a lot more neural pathways that go up from the body up to the brain. And so what we do with our bodies helps our brain reset. Now, there's been a lot of talk and a lot of chatter lately, and some of you may have heard about polyvagal theory or the vagus nerve or how to increase your vagal tone. What I'm talking about here are, in fact, some of the ways to engage the vagus nerve. But don't worry, I'm not going into the whole theory about that. Lots of places that you can find out more about polyvagal theory if you want to. Let's go back to that exercise, the exercise we did in the first video. I had you notice the airway, the breath, the heart, the muscles. Then I had you engage your senses to come back into the present moment. So in order to reset the nervous system, it's helpful to think about all of those pieces or those aspects. Now, I'm not going to start with the airway and the breath. In my experience, a lot of people, when they're trying to be helpful, will say things like, oh, just take a deep breath or breathe. But if you've been in a frozen trauma pattern for a long time, or if you're in the middle of a situation that feels panicky or anxious, trying to take a deep breath is just not possible, right? You may not even know how to take a deep breath. As you begin to learn other tools to reset your nervous system, then it becomes easier to notice your breath and work with some breathing meditations. But I don't think it's the best place to start. So I actually think it's better to start with the idea of connection. And that's what we did in the last part of the opening meditation. It's super helpful if you are in a situation when you notice that things are starting to go haywire, when you're cooking the bacon and the alarm is going off. That's when you want to engage your 5 senses and connect to your body through your senses. So we did this in that opening meditation. You think about, this is the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 technique. You can look it up on the internet if you want to. You start with your eyes, you look around and notice 5 things. Name them out loud. Turn your head. See how many things you can notice. Describe them if that's helpful. That's the 5. The 4 is to touch 4 things. Now, it could be that you pick something up and touch it, but it also could be noticing the chair that you're sitting on, or I'm touching the desk. Touching 4 things. Then you're going to name 3 sounds. Could be anything. And then locate 2 smells. I think smell is kind of tricky. I don't have a lot of things in my life that I use that are intentionally fragrant, but this is the thing about essential oils. That's a nice smell, or flowers, or there may be something else around you that you smell that's a nice smell, not a nasty smell, right? Okay, 2 smells, and then 1 taste. Putting something in your mouth and tasting it. I think that just taking a sip of water does the same thing. So using your 5 senses connects you to yourself, you're back in your present moment, and now you have some more options that are available to you. So here we go with the pathways of the polyvagal theory, right? First one, really simple, is to smile. Now, I know, again, well-meaning people often will say, smile. And you're like, I don't want to smile. I don't feel like smiling. I am not happy. I'm not going to smile. However, even if you don't feel it, if you smile, the muscles in your face send a message to your brain, and it releases all sorts of feel-good chemicals. So, why else do we want to watch endless videos of cute kittens and puppies and babies? It makes us smile. And smiling feels good because it releases feel-good chemicals from the brain into the body. All right? Secondly is our voice. Oh, there's so much cool stuff that's being discovered about how using your voice can help to shift those neural pathways. Humming, chanting, singing, even if you sing off key, sing in the shower or in the car when nobody is listening, using your voice is really empowering and also frees up your energy. I know that in the early years of my own trauma healing, I would get in my car, drive down the highway, and just shout at the top of my lungs. I mean, shout like saying no, or stop, or whatever words it is that I wish I could have said, but didn't. Trauma has a way of constricting our voice. It's part of that airway and disconnecting us from our truth. So anything that we do that opens our voice and our airway and our lungs is a great way to rewire our neural pathways. So you may get the idea, we're moving top to bottom, right? We come down into the heart. Connecting to our heart is another way to rewire and reset our nervous system. Anything that shifts you into that space of expansiveness that we associate with love and the feel-good emotions, that also releases those feel-good chemicals in the brain. And you know, the thing about trauma is it has a way of making us feel distrustful, or like we don't want to connect with other people, or it's not safe to connect with other people. So when we can connect through our heart space, it creates a space where we can connect, not just with ourselves, but with others. And you don't have to start by trying to love somebody. Maybe that's not possible where you're at in your trauma healing or your trauma pattern. You can listen to music. You can imagine loving the earth or loving the world. Or maybe you can, again, go back to the pictures of the cute puppies and the babies and just engage with the abstract idea of feeling loving energy extending outward from yourself to someone else. So that's the heart. And now we get to the lungs, we get to the breath. So not just the lungs, but also the abdomen. And, you know, there are so many ways to work with the breath. There's tons of meditation apps and videos out there. I personally think the simplest one is to breathe out longer than you breathe in. So as you breathe in, just count in your mind. And when you breathe out, add an extra beat or two. So if you breathe into 3, breathe out to 4 or 5. Don't worry about the in breath, it will take care of itself. Just focus on the out breath. And as you do that, you begin to notice that, oh, you're breathing in a little bit longer, and then you're breathing out even still a little bit longer. And now you're feeling calmer. Next thing up is working with our muscles. Remember in the very beginning of the very first video, airway, breath, heartbeat, muscles. Muscles, if we're working with our muscles, we're talking about movement, right? In fight, flight, freeze, your muscles are geared up either to fight, to run, or they're constricted in that little, like fetal ball position in the freeze. Movement of any kind is going to help to discharge the trapped energy which has been stored in your muscles. And it doesn't have to be running or fighting, right? I personally have found a lot of help in a lot of different kinds of movements. I've done yoga off and on starting in my 20s. I've done long distance biking. I've done martial arts, Tai Chi, Qigong. And one of my favorites right now is trauma releasing exercise, which is a specific set of exercises designed to induce a therapeutic tremor, which literally shakes out trauma along the fight, flight, freeze pathway in the body. But the thing about movement is it's just important to find ways that you move your body in a positive way that makes you feel good and releases stored muscle trauma. Stored trauma in the muscles. You get the idea. All right. The last thing I want to say about this is that self-help is great. I want you to be empowered. And sometimes you need the help of somebody else, whether it's a therapist, a counselor, talking to somebody else can really help. Professional help in all forms is really good. Trauma has a way of making us feel alone, to believe that there's no one else who understands or who can help. But truthfully, you are not alone. And there are lots of people who can help and do want to help. You already know Katie is a wonderful resource. She is a fabulous help That's why you're watching these videos, because she's so amazing. And I'm ready and willing and able to help you on this journey if you want, but it doesn't have to be me. It could be whoever you feel comfortable working with. The more I learn about trauma and how it affects the body, the more I'm able to help others just like you find a life of greater freedom, resilience, and joy. My hope for you is that these videos have been helpful, that they've given you a better understanding of trauma and how it might be affecting your life, and given you some ideas about how you can start to reset your own nervous system. I hope you too find greater joy, happiness, and resilience. And thanks for watching.